moon. So this one is going to be a really lovely one for most people. And so I want to start by talking about the basics. The sun is at 23 degrees of Gemini, 25 minutes, and the moon is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, 25 minutes. And this one is squared by Neptune at 25 degrees, 23 minutes in Pisces. So it's a pretty tight square. And then there's some other things going on that I think are generally beneficial. So before I get started with the details, I just want to remind you that I've started a new workshop called Astrological Timing for Success, and I have started to make a few videos starting with Jupiter because Jupiter has just moved into Aries. And I think that we can all gain by knowing where Jupiter is in our charts at any time and what kind of opportunities that can open up for us. So this is another example of astrological timing for success. And I will tell you all about the chart and what you can do with these alignments. But if you'd like to get more detailed information and you want to be in a live class, then just go ahead and check out the link below. That's Astrological Timing for Success, and it will be a live webinar. Also, as always, I have my Patreon group. It only takes a minimum of $5 to join. I'm working on setting up the next live Zoom meeting for my patrons where they can ask any questions they want and get their questions answered. Okay, so let's see what else we want to say about this. So the reason why I feel personally that this full moon with a square to Neptune is really nice, and I think, I kind of need to touch on the fact that a lot of times when people hear about squares in astrology or they see that square on the chart, they think that that's something bad, and that's not actually true. It can sometimes be pretty difficult when that square comes with a malefic planet. Like, for example, we just had that full moon eclipse squared by Saturn, and that was difficult. And, it hits people to varying degrees. Sometimes, if you get really lucky, it doesn't impact you at all or very minimally, but you see other people getting impacted by it, maybe people that and you might feel some sadness for them, even if it's not impacting you personally. But I think probably most people did experience some kind of loss or restriction or obstacle. The word loss seems to be the strongest one coming through with that full moon eclipse. And now that it's passed, with this next full moon coming, that will be almost a month. And so most of you have probably found out what that full moon eclipse squared by Saturn brought into your life. Then if there was some kind of loss or constriction. I mean, some people that I know actually had severe losses and constrictions, and that can be the loss of a loved one. I know someone personally who has been bedridden and has to have back surgery. So yeah, this has been really tough for a lot of people. I felt it myself, although I did adjust to the struggles that I was having with my car and also with my living arrangements. There are a lot of restrictions going on here because I don't have a lot of mobility and I'm having some problems with my car. But that's pretty minor. So, I definitely don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I'm just saying that I did notice it. I did notice the limitations and restrictions and losses that came with that full moon eclipse squared by Saturn. So now we're moving into a much easier phase, and for most people, I think you will like this full moon. The only people who might not like it is if somehow it's landing in your chart in a way that's really difficult, or if you are in the shadow of Neptune, because people who are in the shadow of Neptune can sometimes get the shadow side of Neptune when it's in a square to a full moon. So, I'll touch on that, but I think the number of people who are impacted in that way is probably maybe 20%. I would say 80% are probably impacted in a favorable way. So when I say favorable, what I mean is one, an expanded mind, and two, expanded imagination and creativity. Because with the moon in Sagittarius, the moon, when it's full, is absolutely wonderful for having huge breakthroughs, like major light bulbs going on off. And these are illuminations. That's what the full moon is. It's an illumination. And you definitely will see that at the time of the full moon. But in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And so it gets all the benefits of Jupiter when it's in Sagittarius. And that means mind expansion, consciousness expansion, learning new things, having new ideas. I mean, we're going to be so expansive at this full moon. It's just amazing. So, in a way, you have to stay grounded. That's why the shadow side of Neptune can be difficult for people if they're in the shadow of Neptune. What I mean by the shadow of Neptune is delusional thinking, if they are under the influence of drugs or alcohol, if they are intoxicated by a romance that may not be healthy. Sometimes with a Neptune square, if it's impacting someone in a specific way, they can fall for a romantic partner who is actually narcissistic or very toxic in some way. Like, for example, I talked about Johnny Depp and his court case with Amber Heard. That's an example of the toxic side of Neptune. That's the shadow side of Neptune. That kind of very twisted, dysfunctional, narcissistic, toxic kind of relationship. Now, they were, intensely romantically involved in the beginning. That's the way it always is in the beginning. It doesn't start out bad. It starts out like it just knocks you over. You think this person is just amazing and you're so enthralled by them. But then, of course, you eventually discover that they, in reality, are nothing like what you thought at first. In fact, they may turn out to be the exact opposite of what you thought at first. Like at first, you might think they're so vulnerable and honest. I feel so close to them. I trust them. And then later you find out that they're actually a pathological liar. And everything they said was intended to make you feel the way you felt, that you could trust them, that they were sharing secrets, that you were so close. But it's not just with relationships. It can also be if people get mixed up with drugs and alcohol, or if they have an abuse problem, it can actually get worse when Neptune is in a square or hitting a part of their chart that is putting them under that influence and keeping them there. So those are the difficult sides of Neptune squares. But like I said, I would say it's the smaller portion of the population. So I'm going to say maybe 20%. 80% are probably getting the benefits of the square, which is expanded consciousness, expanded imagination and creativity. You can be so creative at this time and just have so many amazing breakthroughs. So I would say use this time for that purpose, okay? If there has been some problem you've been trying to find a solution to, do a lot of brainstorming at this time and, do things that help stimulate that kind of creativity and brainstorming, like go for long walks in nature or in a park, whatever helps you to get the juices flowing, that's what you want to do. I think for a lot of people, it's spending some time alone, going for walks, being in nature, But for you, it might be maybe going to some place that stimulates your creative juices, like a museum or a gallery, or maybe going to an antique store or a thrift store, or maybe going to an art supply store or something like that, where you just think, oh my God, I could do so much, and you can if you're grounded. Okay. If you're too much pie in the sky, you're going to have a lot of art supplies and a lot of antiques that you'll realize you spent a lot of money and it wasn't really worth it because you're not actually doing anything with it. So the grounding is when you're actually doing something with your imagination, okay, with your creativity. You're grounding it in that physical reality. So, yeah, I would just say really enjoy this full moon squared by Neptune. Make the most of it. Like I said, if you've got a problem you need to solve, or if you're working on a creative project, put your whole self into it. You will find solutions that you had not even considered before. Or if you're working on a creative project, like if it's a writing project or an art project, singing, dancing, sewing, fashion, who knows? But I I can promise you, with this kind of alignment, your creativity is just going to be flowing like crazy, and you'll be able to accomplish so much, and it'll be a lot of fun too. So we don't have to worry about the square to Saturn at this point. The planets that it was in a square to have moved out of that position. So this Saturn is actually in a trine to the sun and in a sextile to the full moon. So it's supporting your creativity. It's helping you ground your creativity to produce something that can have long-term results. Okay, that's what Saturn does. So, like I said, if you are working on a creative project, like for example, if you were writing a book or something, you can be assured that these alignments could actually lead to something that could turn into a product or service that could help you to make money, advance your career, whatever it is that you're needing and wanting. Use your imagination, use your creativity, and ground it in reality so that you can actually manifest all that creativity, or as much of it as possible. And then Saturn will give you the ability to create long-term benefits from that. I also really love the Jupiter in Mars in Aries, because that gives us a buoyant and energetic demeanor so that we have the energy to move forward with our projects. And we also have Pluto in the mix, because Pluto is sextiling Neptune. So Pluto is also giving support to Neptune. So there's real potential for some kind of long-term success to come out of this project and this creativity that is flowing in your life right now. And finally, we have Uranus and Venus and the North Node conjunct in Taurus. And so with Venus, Uranus and the North Node conjunct, what we're seeing is a kind of offbeat creativity. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, okay? They're both about beauty and imagination and taking your passion and putting it into the world to create something beautiful and idealistic. And so with Venus conjunct Uranus, that also adds to that capacity for major breakthroughs and for trying things that are unusual. But guess what? They may actually work, especially with that Saturn trine and sextile to this full moon. Those solutions can actually end up working for you in a very long-term, meaningful way. So this is a super, super exciting full moon, and I hope that you will make the most of it and that you will enjoy it. And please leave your comments below if you're noticing that you're having some major creativity breakthroughs, you're solving problems, you're finding solutions, your imagination is going wild, but at the same time you're able to bring it down into physical manifestation and create something meaningful. I would love to hear what that is for you. So feel free to share that in the comments, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And again, if you're interested in taking that workshop, click on the link below and sign up, and I'll be starting that soon. So I hope to get as many people on board as possible. And if you would like to become a patron, there's always a link below for that as well. So that's it for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.